Okay, hello, welcome to another case walkthrough. Today we're looking at a case called Bit of Music, which was from the Road to Las Vegas for 2025. As you can see there, this was Battle 5. This is so from just last year, so one of the more recent cases that I've had a look at. Just for a bit of context, I thought I would show how this was appeared, or how competitors did when they attempted this for real. So as you can see, the winner Dim got 1240, which actually means there was 10 points dropped. So I'd be interested to know what that was. And then a bunch of people got 1180, which I suggest means one of the bonuses was incorrect. But quite a lot of people, or the quickest times, they're kind of ending before the half an hour. So it's only as we get later down we see people who went right up to the 30 minutes. So yeah, so although no one got full marks, they got very close. For me, the first time I tried this, as you know, I always attempt these cases a number of times before I record myself, because this is all part of the learning process. First time I did this, I did get through all the 7 levels. I didn't get all the marks. There was, I think, one of the levels I had a reference that was wrong, and so got a few questions wrong there, but then didn't really do, I only did the first 2 bonuses. So yeah, I don't remember exactly the score, but I think it was just under 1,000. So I'm pretty happy with that. But obviously that's only doing it in my own time, without the pressure of actually it being a live case, which always makes things go a little bit, makes time seem to go a lot quicker when there's real pressure on. So if you're watching this, I'm assuming you've either done the case or you're going to do the case. So I don't need to say too much, except it's all about dealing with data that is in binary and hexadecimal form, connected to some questions to do with music and converting various bits and pieces. There's a little table here at the start which lists instruments, channel numbers, and then in some cases notes, and then there's a separate notes tab where there are more notes and more numbers which come in handy later. I'm going to go through this in a similar sort of structure to what I did when I tried it for the first time. Obviously, if you wanted to, you could, knowing what's coming up, you could kind of prepare for that. So I'm going to try and not do that too much, although obviously I know what's coming up, so my structure will be a little neater than it was in reality when I did this the first time. Anyway, that's enough chat, enough introduction. Let's get on with it. So let's start the clock on our walkthrough. We've got half an hour, but we're not going to need all that, I don't think. So start, and let's get going. So what I'm actually going to do is and I did this when I did this the first time, I'm going to name these ranges, although I'm just going to call this I note because we will actually have a note in the second table as well. So if I call them the same thing, it will get confused. So I'm going to select that, Control Shift F3 to name my range, and then do the same thing over here on the notes table, Control Shift F3, and name my ranges, and that's all I need to do for that. Okay, question 1, you're given a status byte, which is the first 8 digits, and the last 4 digits of that represent whether it's on or off, or it's a change, and so we just need to convert the last 4 digits into, for this question, into decimal. So we're just going to grab the right of this 4 digits, and then we're going to wrap that inside a bin to decimal, binary to decimal, and that gives us 14. And when we fill that down and grab those answers, we'll paste them in the spreadsheet, but we'll also go and paste them in our score sheet. And we start off with 100 points. Nice and quickly and easy. Right, for the second one, we're given a complete note on message, so that's 24 digits. To which instrument is the message addressed? There are no percussion instruments because percussion have the same channel, and then we have to look them up by note. So we're only going to have from these 6 instruments here. So we have to work out the channel, which we get from taking digits 5 to 8 from this number. So let's take the mid of this, starting at 5 and 4 digits, which gives us the digits 5 to 8. Let's wrap that inside a binary to decimal function. So we get 2, and then I'm just going to spread this out. So let's X look up 2 in our channel and return our instrument. And we get drawbar organ for the first one, which is correct. So let's fill that down. We get answers which look pretty reasonable, as in they're the right sort of answers. We'll copy that over to our score sheet, and level 2 is 100 points, and we're done. Okay, let's move on to level 3. So level 3, we get the percussions joining. So now when we do this first bit, we return 10, we have to do something different. So I'm going to copy that formula from above. So on this first one, we actually get 10. So we don't know, and at the moment it's saying that's a snare drum because snare drum is simply the first one that returns 10, but the actual answer is kick drum, so we know we need to do some more work. So what we are going to do is that when it is a drum, we need to find out the key, which is digits 9 to 16. So let's take mid of our original message from the 9th digit and 8 digits long. That gives us a binary code. Then let's wrap that in a binary to decimal to get a number, and now we're going to X look up this number. I'm going to go inside here, so it, where's my cursor gone? Lost my X look up our number, and where we're going to look it up, we're going to look it up in the key, which we named, and return the note, which gives us C2, and then we need to look that up. So X looking up that C2 in the I note, so the instrument note, and returning the instrument. And that gives us the kick drum, which is what we wanted. And now I'm going to wrap this in an if. So we're going to say if the channel was 10, then we want to take this other instrument. Otherwise, we're going to return the original instrument. Okay, and let's fill that down. And we get some reasonable looking answers. Let's copy that over, and let's copy it again over into our score sheet. And level 3 is 120, and we've used up just over 4 minutes. Okay, so now moving on to level 4. We now have a sequence of multiple instruments getting triggered. Each message is separated with a semicolon. What is the average velocity across only the note on messages rounded to the nearest integer? So now we're going to build a data table because this gets a bit too big to handle. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to text split whatever's in B1 with a semicolon, and we get all of our numbers. Just expand this for the moment, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my formulas from our last level. So we've got some formulas here that when we place them next to this, it's going to give us some information about this. So we've got that's the channel. Let's just name these to help us. That's the sort of the instrument one if it's not a 10, and this is actually the instrument. And in fact, what I might do is I don't really need that column, so let's delete that. So we've got the channel and the instrument, but we need to get some extra information. We need to get the velocity. So where is the velocity found? So if we go back to the explanation, it tells us that the last 8 digits represent velocity. So let's grab the last 8 digits. So we're going to take the right of this 8 digits. We're going to wrap that inside a binary to decimal function, which gives us our number, and I think it's actually just the number itself. We don't need to do any lookup. That's good. We've got an error here. Oh yes, I got rid of that column, which I shouldn't have got rid of. So let's reinsert it because we needed that extra column because it tells us what it is if it's not 10, and I need to point to that again. So, oops. So that was silly to get rid of. So instrument, so I'm going to just call that interim instrument just in case. Okay, so we've got our velocity. We also need to know the status, so whether this is on or off. So we know that's from question 1 that is the first 4 digits of this. And if we go back to the instructions at the start of the case, we get an explanation of that here. So what I'm going to do is just take a little print screen for now, capture that, put that over here, and let's just create a little table. So 1001, 1000 and 1011 is on, off, or change. And let's just call this the code, and let's call this the status, and let's grab all of that and name some ranges based on that so that we don't need to keep copying that over to each new sheet. So what we're going to say is we're going to X look up whatever we found in our code and return our status. And that's not going to work because left returns a text and we typed in a number. So when we multiply them by that one, we get something. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we need to filter the velocities where the status equals on. I'm going to put that in capitals. I don't think it would actually make any difference. And then we're going to wrap that inside an average, and then wrap that inside a round, which gives us 49, which is what we're expecting for the example, and hopefully is correct for all the others. Let's go to our score sheet, level 4, and we're good to go. Let's return for level 5. So level 5, which is down here, we now, because binary takes up so much space, we now get our numbers in hexadecimal format. So all the formulas we've done so far won't work on this unless we convert this back to binary. So let us make a data table, and what we want to do is convert these into binary. So I'm going to text split B1 based on every semicolon. Oh, did I do so? I used a normal colon, so there we go. And then what I need to do is get this into its 3 separate parts. So I'm going to do this for the first row and then do a lambda to basically map it out for the whole. So we're going to firstly import our lambdas, because I want to use my text characters lambda to take this and split it into groups of 2, which it does. And then what I want to do with each of those is I'm going to go over them by row, and in each row what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert them into decimal, so hex to decimal on the row, and then I'm going to wrap that inside another by row, again using a lambda based on the row, and this time I'm then going to go base on my row into base 2 with a minimum length of 8. And the reason I'm doing that is if I don't do that, some of the shorter numbers won't return 8 digits, which becomes a problem. And then I'm going, so for example, if I just put that as 6, some of those come out shorter because they start with leading zeros, but when I try and join it into a 24 kind of piece of single code, that it wouldn't be correct. So that's why I'm doing that. And then we're just going to wrap that in a concat. And then when I fill that down, we've now got the binary code as we would like it, which means we can go to level 4, copy our formulas over from level 4 to here, and all of our information is already there. So we've done a lot of the hard work already. So what's the actual question asking for? Which note has been used most in the messages? So we don't actually have the note yet. So let's remind ourselves, how do we get the note? The note is the middle 8 digits. So we need to take from this the 9th digit with 8 onwards, which gives us the note. And then we want to wrap that inside a binary to decimal function, which in this case gives us 53, and then we want to wrap that inside an X lookup where we look that up in the key and return the note. And for that first one we get F3, and if we fill that down we get all of our notes, and we're asked for the one that appears the most often, so I'm going to use my most least lambda based on that range, and I didn't refer to a property, most least of that range, and I can see all of them there, but I just need to refer to that first one, which in this case is C2, which looks correct. I'm going to copy this over, and then something weird's going to happen because we're going to paste it in, and it's going to take 8 marks off, and I'm going to come back to that at the end to explain what's going on there and why I don't think that's actually an issue. But level 5 done. Let's move on to level 6. Okay, one of your cables seems to have an issue. We no longer have the colon separating our messages, and this time they want to know which instruments are not used in the following messages. So actually we've done a lot of the work here already, because we're just going to use a lot of the stuff from level 5 on this. So the first thing I'm going to do is use my text characters on cell B1 into rows of 6. And so now I've got the same thing as I had in level 5. So I can now just take this, I'm going to call this binary just so we know exactly what's going on. And this is my hex. So I'm going to select all of those columns, go back to level 6 and paste that there. We need to fill this stuff down because there are more cases. And what we need to know is which is the missing instrument. So over here I'm going to return my list of instruments, and I'm going to do a count ifs my list of, don't want to take the interim list, I want to take the actual list, is equal to my list over here, and we'll see that one of them returns 0. So our answer, we will just say filter this list where the number equals 0, and that should return only 1, which we can reference here. And we'll grab our copy and we'll go to our score sheet, go to level 6, and we have 180 points. Good, good, good. Let's keep going on. So we're going on to level 7. So level 7, you're ready to play some music, blah, 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 blah. We've got on and off. Instruments are polyphonic, hence they can be triggered on and off. In this level, there'll be no messages for percussion instruments. What is the first instrument that has the same note turned on and off? So again, actually a lot of the work has already been done for us. So if I grab everything from level 6, certainly these columns here, and we'll put that into level 7 in column E. So we've got all the information we need. We just need to drag this down a little bit. So the question is, which is the first to come on and off? Now in this one, they tell us the answer for the first one is acoustic grand piano because it comes on in message 39 and off in 41. Which I think is this one, A sharp 4 on and off. Now the way I did this in the first time I did it is not the most efficient. I know if you've seen Hayden's walkthrough, he uses a countif to basically count how many times each combination has come before. The way I did this was to say I want to take the unique, actually no, I created a combo column. So I said take the instrument, combine it with an pipe and the note, and do that for all of them to create a kind of combination, a unique combination of instrument and note. I then said, right, let's take the unique list of those, so all the possible ones it could be. And then what I did was I created a column for on and off, and I firstly started by joining these together, but I separated them with a pipe so I could distinguish which is the instrument and which is the status. And then what I did was I wrapped that inside an X match. So I wanted to find where that appeared within a range where I joined together the same kind of data, which you'll see, it's easier to explain if you visualize this. So you'll see in a second. So I joined together the combo with a pipe and the status. So effectively I was saying, tell me when this particular combination first appears. And we get lots of errors for where they don't appear at all. So I then wrapped this in an if error, then return 0. And then what I was looking for, and this is more obvious now we see it, this one comes on at, it goes on at 39 and off at 41. So we're looking for anywhere there's numbers in both of these and the second number is larger than the first one. And then we're going to want to know the first time that happens. So what I did here was I built a lambda array mapped over 2 different arrays. So I mapped over the first column of this array, and I mapped over the second column of this array. And what I did was create a lambda, said the first column is on, the second column is off, and I want to know if on is greater than 0, so on was an actual number and off was greater than 0, and the off is greater than the on, so it goes off after it's gone on. If all of those things are true, then I want to return the number when it was turned off, i.e. when it happened. Otherwise, return a really high number, so I'll give 999. And when I close that, what we get is for all of them we get 999 except the row where we get an actual result, and this is in row 41. And so what I then needed to do is I needed to find, I wanted to X look up 0 because we're looking for the smallest in this range and returning the note combination. Because I won't actually find 0, I want to say 0 or the next largest item. So we find out that it's the acoustic grand piano. And then I want to take the text before the pipe, and that gives me acoustic grand piano. And that should give me all of my answers. If I copy those over to our score sheet, level 7, we get 200 points, and we've got 12 just under 13 minutes left, so we've used up about 17 minutes. So let's work on to the bonuses. And the first bonus is how many ones are there in the level 1 messages. So what we want to do is we want to concatenate the level 1 messages, and then we'll use the very well-known count occurrences lambda. So I'm looking for instances of 1 in the concatenation, and I get 79, which we'll put into our score sheet, and we'll come back and check whether that's right in a minute. And we'll type it here. Which letter appears exactly 22 times in the level 2 answers? So in level 2 answers, what we're going to do is we're going to concatenate the level 2 answers. Then we're going to wrap that inside our text characters lambda, and then I'm going to wrap that inside our most least lambda, and then we want the one that returns 22 times, which is the letter I. Interestingly, I know because I've done this a few times that we have to put that as a capital I for some case, and a lowercase I will not work. And the same is true on this next bonus. In level 3 messages, count the number of zeros, subtract the number of ones, divide the result by 2, and which letter appears exactly that many times in the level 3 answers. So let's firstly grab this formula, because this will help for telling us how many times each letter appears. Just make sure that's referring to the correct answers. Okay, and then we want to do the same sort of thing that we did on the first question, which is counting the number of occurrences of certain things. How many times does 1 appear in here? Is that referring to the same range? It is. Count the number. We're concatenating. Oh, we're on the wrong question. That's question 2. We want to be down here on question 3. There we go. And then we're going to do the same thing here, but change that to a 0. We get 260, so that minus that is 40, that divided by 2 is 20. We could do this mentally in our head. Which one returns 20 times? It is the letter R. And again, from doing this before, if you don't put it in a capital, you won't get the mark. I'd be interested to know whether that was the case when this was happening for real, or whether they accepted lowercase r. What is the sum of all the velocity values in level 3? So level 3, we've got all of our values over here. I'm just going to paste this over to the side, go to whichever of these has velocity, which this one does. So let's just copy these formulas here. If I just need to copy that, but put it I'll have to put it 4 cells over. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 1 cell up. And for those, it returns a sum of 1429. So we'll go back up here. It's at the end here that I often find trying to avoid using the mouse doesn't work, because you're jumping around to each question while you're trying to do the bonuses. And then in level 7, example message, after converting all the hexadecimal values to binary values, treat each binary status byte as a decimal number, and the status is only the first 8 digits, and this caught me out the first time I tried this. So what we're going to do is go to level 7. We're going to take this, we would need to use text characters to split this in strings of 6, but we only want the first string, so actually we need the first 2 letters of this. So let's take the left of that for 2, and then we're going to use a similar thing to what we did before. So we want to convert that from hex to decimal. Actually, no, should be able to go straight hex to binary. That should work, although I've got a feeling some of them won't. Actually, they are all 8 digits long, and even if they weren't, this shouldn't matter, because when we sum this up, it doesn't like that. If we sum that range, it returns 0 first time because it's treating that as text, so we need to just times that by 1, and we get some very, very large number. And we'll go to our case here, and then we will paste that in here as well, and we'll just wait a second. And we're not going to get all the marks because I'm going to go back to level 5 and explain. So we get 1, 2, 4, 2, so we're missing 8 marks. We'll stop. Actually, no, we'll remind ourselves. So question 90, they're saying A4. Now, from doing this before, I know that if we change that to C2, it gives us the correct answer. So I want you to remember that. So C2 and A4. I'll just stop the timer on that. Because if we go to level 5, we look at question 90, it's returning A4 and A4. Now, if I go to question 90, you'll notice there's actually 2 at the top. There's 2 that have 4, and mine naturally put them in alphabetical order. The only reasoning I can think of is that without saying so, they expected this to also then be, where there's a tie, to be sorted by the key number, because if you do it by that, then they're in a slightly different order. And so that then returns C2. So if I, that's the only thing I can think of. But when I watched somebody else doing a walkthrough, I think it was Hayden, and he showed the answers on screen, and he had the actual answers file, so the version of this where when you put your answers in, you get a little tick next to it. He also put A#4 or A/ #4 and got it correct. So I think when whoever did this the first time did get it correct, and there's some issue with what's going on the kind of score sheet on the website. That's the only thing I can think. Just as I said before, real scores 1240. A lot of people got 1180, so I suspect those people missed out this 70 mark, so either ran out of time or perhaps made the mistake I did the first time, which is to try and sum the whole values, which then ended up with a very different score. As we saw, Dim came first, missed 10 marks. So I presume either got one of these wrong, although that would seem strange to get just one wrong because that's 10 marks, or potentially got 2 of these. I imagine the most likely explanation, got one of those last questions wrong, but I can't think why, unless it was just a copying error or something like that. But there we go. So I really enjoyed this case. As I said, it was one of the ones I've done better on the first time I tried it. Again, I think I said at the start I managed to get through all 7 levels, but not the bonuses on the first go. But that's easier done when you're not under the real pressure of doing it live. Still managed that in under half an hour, so in theory could have done quite well, but obviously the real thing always makes a difference. So yeah, nice fun case like that, and yeah, found it helpful to work through, and learning a bit about binary and decimal reminded me of there's a case called the numbers game which does some similar stuff with hexadecimal into binary and so on. So yeah, good old fun case, and hopefully you found it useful. Even if you didn't, I know I did, because this is a useful process to force me to learn. So thanks for watching.